The Tokyo Olympics are finally upon us. Welcome into Our Team, Our Town, a 6 News digital special as we finally open the Tokyo Olympic Games. I'm Curtis Quillen.
That's right. I'm Matt Lively. After a one-year delay, the 2020 Olympics are officially open, and we are here to celebrate.
We'll talk all things Olympics tonight, including people with ties to Central Texas who are going for the gold in Tokyo. First, let's take a live look at the beautiful city of Tokyo, Japan, with the first full day of the Olympics just a few hours from starting. Matt, the anticipation finally over.
Yeah, we've had to wait 5 years for these Olympics, which is just something I thought I would never say. But when you look at that picture right there, Curtis, I can't help but get excited. You see the rings right there, and I'm just ready to get this thing kicked off.
And what a perfect city to finally bring the Olympics back in for reasons we will get to later on in this show. A city that has been in so much anticipation of these games for now, like Matt said.
Yeah, and as exciting as the games are, they're going to look very different this year.
It's going to be a lot like what we saw teams go through in the NCAA basketball tournament. Matt Renew at our sister station KUSA in Denver got a firsthand look at what these athletes are going through, trying to fulfill lifelong dreams this summer.
Training in Boulder.
You swim, then you bike, then you run.
Team USA triathletes like Taylor Knibb have been working hard to get to the Summer Olympics.
It's a very special experience that only a handful of people get to experience in their life.
Doing whatever it takes to compete with the world's best.
Fast.
And around 2 months before the postponed Olympics, this team's racing in a qualifying event in Japan that will show them some of the pandemic health guidelines they'll likely face at the Olympics.
There's a couple different protocols. I mean, we have stuff where we have to fill out an app where we are every day.
It all starts with COVID tests before leaving and a lot more on arrival.
We have to take a test 72 hours before we go there, and then we have to have testing while we're there.
They'll have a shorter period of time to acclimate to Japan's climate.
Normally we'd get into Japan about a week before, but now we only have 4 days to sort of acclimate to the time zone.
And then they'll isolate in hotel rooms, having very little contact with others.
We will not be able to leave except for the race, course previews, a swim slot each day, and a gym time. You can't run outside, you can't ride outside.
It's not exactly what these athletes signed up for.
It's very strict.
But Taylor says given all they've trained for, they're glad to do it if it means competing at the Olympics in Tokyo.
It keeps everyone safe, and that's helpful, and it allows the race to happen. That's what we want at the end of the day.
It's really what we all want, and we're just happy we can get these Olympics in.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, after so long and after so many sporting events got canceled last year, you would just think that maybe this wasn't going to happen. So the fact that we're getting this opportunity is a win in itself.
Right, and you look at some of the other measures put in place for this Olympic Games. No fans in any of the spectators. If you've got channel 6.1 on, you're watching the opening ceremonies. The only people in the stadium there, officials from these countries in the IOC and reporters. You can only, if you're an athlete, you're going to the Olympic Village and the venues for either practice or competition. It's insane.
Yeah, you are literally, you can go practice, you can go back to the Olympic Village, and you have to kind of be guarded at all times with somebody kind of looking over your shoulder.
To put it into Monopoly terms, don't pass go, don't collect $200, and no free parking.
Yeah, that's
We've
exactly
heard
right.
plenty of athletes talk about how hard this is going to be, though, going through these Olympics.
Yeah, and we have a few athletes from our area vying for a medal in Tokyo. First up, a WACO High grad who, by the way of Baylor, is in the relay pool for the men's 4x4 100-meter relay.
Will London famously took part in the Olympic trials 5 years ago as a college freshman. Obviously, we remember that didn't go well, but tomorrow, London is boarding a plane across the Pacific to don the red, white, and blue.
First time on the track, now like 4 years old.
Will London is a WACOan through and through. The WACO High and Baylor grad is set for the opportunity of his lifetime, a chance to compete in Tokyo after missing out at the Olympic trials in 2016.
I wasn't expecting to go, and coach he just said, we're gonna do it. You know, because he told me when you do it again, when you get older, it'll take a lot of pressure off of you because you've been there before. So going into it this year, it's not as much pressure. It's no pressure at all.
London is one of the fortunate few in the pro ranks who gets to train in the same venue where he ran in college, training with the same coach as so many great names before him.
Coach Hart has coached the best, from Michael Johnson, Jeremy Warner, Darren Williamson, Sonya Richards, you know, those guys.
Olympic medals and top world rankings galore in that group, all coached by a man whose mentorship of WACO's latest graduate of Quarter Mile U includes telling London to keep going.
To hear that from a coach that's been on every major scale of track and field and have coached the absolute best in the world ever to run the 400, it's always very humbling to hear.
So as the calendar flips to June and London heads to Eugene, he does it with the confidence that he'll be on the roster in Tokyo.
I honestly just look at it no other way. You know, I don't see it no other way.
As London trains for June's trials, hoping to leave a mark, not just in Tokyo or on the sport of track and field, but perhaps most of all, on his hometown of Waco.
I'll never trade it for anything. Like, if I could stay and train here forever, then, you know, I would, you know what I'm saying? So it's not something that I take lightly. You know, like, I really love the city that I'm from. I love everybody that's here, and I just want to continue to motivate everybody around me.
Because when the stage is biggest, Will London is at his most confident.
I showed up to make the USA team. I've showed up to make the world team. I've always showed up when it mattered the most, and I think it's going to continue to be the same.
So that's from when we caught up with Will ahead of the Olympic trials last month. Now he's headed to Tokyo. The first round of the 4x400 meter relay is the mixed event a week from tonight. Since qualifying for the 4x400 meter relay pool, London's performance has been remarkable, with him running one of his best races of the season just a couple weeks ago, winning the 400 at a meet in Georgia.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough. He is going to Tokyo tomorrow. He's going to board that flight, and we did a little trivia.
We did.
What was your guess for how far Dallas to Tokyo?
Our assistant news director and I guessed 15 hours.
All right, it is 13 hours, and thankfully he has experience stretching and things like that. He is a runner after all. But he's currently an alternate for the Americans. He's hoping that he can crack onto a relay team or just be given the opportunity to touch the track and run for a medal. Regardless, he will be losing sleep because he's going to suit up as a member of Team USA.
I don't know, it's going to be hard. I still got a lot of stuff I got to pack, go to the grocery store, grab some things. So, you know, I'm going to try to, like, not sleep as much and try to, you know what I'm saying, fix my schedule as far as, you know, I got a long flight ahead of me. But I don't think I'll sleep that much knowing I'm that excited. Just keep watching and just be prepared to see me run in Tokyo.
All right, from his lips to your ears, Will London plans on running in Tokyo. The earliest that we might see that is July 31st, but that's exciting because being on the alternate team right now, who knows? Maybe that'll end up happening for him and we'll get to watch him on the big screen.
Right, and he's believed to be the first Olympian from actual Waco proper.
Yeah.
Exciting for Central Texas.
And he was excited about that because he said, not only am I the first from Waco, but he stayed in Waco. He
did.
Grew up here, went to high school and Baylor, as we saw in those packages, so really cool stuff.
And the first time he ever ran on a track was at Hart-Patterson. Everyone knows where that is. You drive past it on Valley Mills every day. To see a lifelong Wacoan heading to the Olympics, that's really cool.
It's very cool, but London isn't the only Baylor track alum heading to Tokyo.
Former Bear sprinter Trayvon Bromell is Tokyo bound as well. Bromell won the 100-meter final at the Olympic trial. He turned pro after his sophomore year at Baylor in 2015.
Absolutely insane. And Baylor legend Ekpe Udoh is in Tokyo tonight as well. He'll star for the Nigerian team in basketball. It's Udoh's first Olympic Games. He was part of the Nigerian team just a few weeks ago that upset the United States in its first Olympic tune-up in Las Vegas last month.
Now, there are more. It is a record for the number of Baylor alums or people with Baylor ties in the Olympics, with 6. Casey Lightfoot among them, Brittany Griner, who you'll see images of later on. Obviously, a lot of excitement when the Olympic Games open.
Yeah, and we aren't the only ones excited. I know that for a fact.
Right.
Our newsroom has been all over, but now our evening anchor, Chris Radcliffe, is going to join us for Our Team, Our Town. And Chris, you have been clamoring about the Olympics for the last few weeks, last months, really. So what are you most excited for?
Well, I think it's going to be a really exciting Olympic Games. I mean, the weird part is COVID Olympics, right? So no fans in the stands. All those athletes that perform off that energy and the adrenaline rush, that's going to be such an adjustment. So it's going to be a really hard thing. Now, my dad was a former track coach. Well, he coached everything. But if you're a track coach, it's kind of like being the circus leader. You need to know what's going on in the pole vault pit while you're setting up your 4x400 meter relay. So it's kind of a big dance going on. So I'm really excited the second half of the Olympics to watch the track and field. I really love the field events that they don't talk a lot about, the hammer throw, the javelin. Who are these athletes? How do you train all your life in such a specified sport? And then, of course, everyone wants to see the fastest man and woman in the world. So that's exciting. But I'm really excited this year, guys, about softball. As a former left-handed college pitcher, Monica Abbott, who throws about 80 miles an hour underhand, left-hander, as well as Kat Osterman are the 2 aces on our softball team this year. So they're both coming from the left side. I really want to see the team do well. I've been a fan since the early 80s when softball came into the Olympics. And I was a kid and I was able to watch it. Lisa Fernandez was such a great softball player out of UCLA, and then she ended up being a great coach and mentor. And to this day, all these players on this year's team really have a lineage that dates back to her and her Southern California ties. So to me, it's a real big deal. I wish the ladies good luck, of course, but I want to see the U.S. team do well, make America proud, and they usually do. I mean, we have some of the greatest athletes in the world. But guys, I'm just finally excited we have an Olympic Games. I feel like we've had to go a drought here with an extra year without it, but we're going to go back to back. So we're going to go from this year's Summer Olympic Games, boom, in February, right into the Winter Olympics. So we're going to get our fill here, and it's really exciting to start this fortnight. You guys know what a fortnight is? Well, you're learning, right? Yeah, 2 weeks.
Vaguely.
I know the video game.
2 weeks. That's what Wimbledon is. It's a fortnight. So the 2-week event, really, that is the Olympics, is one of the greatest things in the world. And I'm so delighted. Again, here at NBC, we're covering it. So, I mean, there's been a lot of them now, but let's hope this year is one of the best.
You know, Chris, you bring up softball. We had the TV on in the newsroom all week watching the U.S. softball team against Italy the other night, Canada the night after. Is it weird seeing softball played in a converted baseball stadium up in Fukushima so far from Tokyo?
It is weird, and it reminds me of like Little League fields or something where you're actually running to second base through the grass because, the dimensions don't line up as far as infield, outfield. But let me tell you, softball is such a strategic game, and every run is so important. I think that's why I love it so much. You don't rely on the famous Earl Weaver 3-run homer that he called the best play in baseball. I love the execution, the bunt, the taking the extra base, seeing the great defense. And these pitchers can do anything with a ball. They can make it go up, they can make it go down. It's really a neat thing. And I like seeing the best in the world from other countries too, and just making sure that America is still the top of the world.
All right, well, Chris, remind me, how many years have you worked here at 6 News?
This is year number 19, so I'm officially entering my 20th football season.
Okay,
yes.
so you've watched a couple of Olympics here in our newsroom. Can you take me back to what is your favorite Olympic moment over that span?
There's no doubt about it. And, you know, thank you. You didn't tell me anything about this question here, so let's see if you guys had the B-roll. Jeremy Warner winning Olympic gold. Jeremy Warner went on the heels to Athens after the Australian Games in 2000 and after the 1996 Games of the Michael Johnson era. I mean, Michael Johnson was just the most fabulous athlete in the world after 1996. So now we have this quiet period, and Clyde Hart goes back to work once again at 400U, and he cranks out 2 great runners, and Darrell Williamson and Jeremy Warner. And we're watching the qualifiers over there, and we're seeing Jeremy Warner seems to be running the best times he's ever run in his life. Wait a minute, this is a hair of a second off of Michael Johnson numbers. And the next thing you know, not only does he qualify, he gets in the final, and just down the home stretch, he runs past everybody. We were going crazy in the newsroom because it was so unexpected. He went there so under the radar, and then to dominate like he did was such a beautiful thing. And then, of course, having himself and Darrell, and then 2 other amazing runners in America, winning the 4x400 meter gold was just, I mean, it was just going to happen. It was almost a no-doubter if there ever was such a thing. It's like, don't drop the baton, and the U.S. is going to win that one as well. And they did big. Or should I say bigly that year.
You know, Chris, it's funny. He brings that up. That's the race that got me so interested in Olympic track and field, was the exact one he's talking about, Warner lapping everybody on the final lap.
Yeah.
It was an incredible Olympics. Chris, have you ever seen an Olympic Games this height, either in your time covering Baylor here in Central Texas, or just from a broad perspective as the Olympics as a whole?
No, I mean, everything gets bigger. Our ability to communicate with each other, guys, is so different than it was 20 years ago, and that's really a weird thing. So, I mean, all of us, when we woke up this morning, we're news gatherers, we're information gatherers. We go to our phone, and we know stuff, and we're learning stuff. So when a magical moment happens now in the Olympics, you don't need to wait for it, you know, until, you know, a week later, or like it was in the 1930s. Can you imagine? You know, Jesse Owens is really doing well at the Olympics. Read about it tomorrow morning's paper. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. So not only do you hear about these great feats, we get their backstory, and then you see it almost in real time. It's just incredible, our ability to communicate with each other. For good or for bad, this is one of the total positives of it. Something like the Olympics, where we can all feel as close to Tokyo as we can get, and even during a pandemic.
For sure, and I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Our last question, we gave ours at 6 o'clock. I'm going to put you on the spot. Your top 5 Summer Olympic sports or events.
Oh, okay. I'm a traditionalist, so I'm going to say track and field. That's what it was invented, right?
Well, that's one.
Okay, in Athens. So that's number 1. Swimming, number 2. Gymnastics, number 3. I'll go with softball just this year because I want to see what happens. And you know what? I'm throwing surfing in. As a California guy, I want to see who gets tubular this Olympic Games.
Can you hit it? Can you hit like a pretty good wave?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, here's the funny part. Everybody thinks that, like, oh, surfing looks easy because these pros make it look so easy. Guys, if you can stand up in a tube and you're surfing a wave, that wave can kill you. It is big enough and strong enough and powerful enough where you need to know what you're doing. So where I grew up in Southern California, if the waves were 3 and 4 feet, ideal surfing. It was just stay out in front of the wave, you're doing great, and then the fancy guys would cut back and forth. You want to go to Hawaii and try pipeline, you're taking your life in your hands at that point. And you're going to see some of the best athletes and surfers in the world that will do amazing things this Olympics, I know it.
Yeah. So then what you read about the waves in Tokyo, does that concern you a little bit?
Yes, it does. And so I was thinking that too. I'm anxious to see the coverage, and if they have scuba gear out there, I know they will have people on boats and kayaks, as well as motorized vehicles that can get in there in case there's an emergency. But I'll be watching it real carefully. I'm interested to see how it's scored, how it's done, and I also want to hear the broadcasters. I love broadcasting and learning things about a sport that maybe I don't know how it's been done before, and it'll be very informational.
Chris Radcliffe, your 5th Summer Games as a member of the 6 News staff.
Oh, gosh.
Appreciate you joining our team, our town. We'll see you here in a bit.
See you in 3 years for the next games.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. He's spoken like a true former sports director, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
He answered questions that only he could answer in our newsroom.
Correct.
Because I was in, he talks about the 04 Olympics. I was 9 years old.
I was in 2nd grade, I think. So maybe.
That makes me mad.
Yeah. Well, one of the sports making its return to the Summer Olympics is baseball.
Is there a country that could have brought it back in better fashion than Japan? A sport making its return in probably the hungriest country in the world for this sport. Matt Renew rejoins us again, taking a look at the baseball culture in Japan.
Wave that rally flag. In the days before the pandemic, if you wanted to hang out with a lot of people, you went to see the Tokyo Giants play at the Tokyo Dome. The Giants are like the Yankees of Japan, a dominant team that's won more than 20 series titles, more than any other team in Japan, and they get people fired up. In a country that loves its baseball. Fans stand for hours in the searing heat to get tickets, and once inside, they don't want to eat peanuts and Cracker Jacks. They order ramen noodles, seafood, or get bento boxes with a picture of their favorite player. When it's time for the game, play is a lot like in the MLB, but after that, things get different. First off, they have cheerleaders on the field and in the stand. Bands play while fans chant, sing, and wave their flags. And if you really want to see the game up close, you can sit in excite seats where you'll need a glove and helmet because you're sitting on the field during the game and might just catch a ball or two.
So you have to have hard hats and gloves on the seats so you can catch the ball. These seats sell out first, and the fan is part of the game.
That's something I'm interested in.
I would pay a lot of money
for the excite seats. It's like going to SeaWorld and you're in the splash zone. Way better. That's way cooler.
That's where I always sat. Always in that first 20 rows. Shamu always got me wet. That's exactly where I'm going if I'm buying Tokyo Giants.
I want to catch a ball. In American baseball, I'm not for the grown-up that brings a glove. But in that case, you should probably glove up.
Always do it. Okay. better part of Japanese baseball. Seeing the stands and the way the fans behave, or the bat flips?
The bat flips. It doesn't compare in America right now.
No, and you get pegged for it in Major League Baseball because
I would break our set if I tried to.
They're 30 years behind it. Yeah. The U.S. team gets started next Friday morning against Israel. Your thoughts on the USA baseball team?
I'm ecstatic. I can't wait. I was bummed as a kid when they took baseball out of the Olympics, and so to see it come back this year is really exciting. And we were talking earlier, there is a member of the USA baseball Olympic team that actually won a silver medal as a speed skater, and now he's in the Miami Marlins farm system, and he's playing for Team USA. So talk about athletic.
Right.
Two different sports.
Those are two very different sports, and he's made it to the biggest stage possible.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Okay. Yeah. We're going to go into a little bit of an opinion section now. We're going to start talking about 3 of the hot button issues, hot button in air quotes, of these current Olympic Games. Let's start with the United States basketball teams. Matt Lively, I pose to you the question, are you hitting the panic button if you're either of these basketball teams?
No. Absolutely not. And let's start with the men first, because that's a team that, first off, they had to get used to FIBA rules. Which they're just different than the NBA. They don't get the calls that they typically do. Plus, these guys just played an NBA season. They're jumping into it now. They haven't played a lot together because this Team USA is much different than a lot of the teams of past years, and they are currently without Devin Booker, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday. So they get those 3 guys back. I think Team USA dominates per usual.
You mentioned the NBA season. This is the latest NBA season ever?
Ever.
And so they're literally going from getting eliminated in the playoffs, or for guys like Chris Middleton, winning an NBA title. Congratulations, the parade's over. You're on a plane going over the Pacific to go play in the Olympics.
Worse for Devin Booker, by the way. He loses.
He loses it. Now he has to go play with these guys with almost no practice time. And you know, I'm a diehard Spurs fan, so I was excited to see that Greg Popovich was going to be coaching this team. There are clowns on my Twitter saying that it is time for Pop to retire. Again, I think them losing to Nigeria and to Australia comes down to the simple fact that their star players did not play very deep in the playoffs. The Americans did. The Americans didn't have much practice time together, and it's a brand new team. A lot of these other countries have teams that have been together for a minute. It takes a little bit to gel when you're bringing guys from 30 NBA franchises into camp and into practice.
And we're missing a lot of those big names. LeBron James, Chris Paul. Like the usual suspects that play for these Team USA squads are not there this year. So when you have young guys, it's going to take a second, but I have no doubt. They've won 15 gold medals. I think there have only been 19 Olympics where basketball was actually an Olympic sport. So the USA is okay.
The USA will be fine. Here's the other thing. For the guys that have been on the Olympic teams in the past, Mike Krzyzewski coached every team from between the Athens Olympics and now. And then Jeff Van Gundy coached the World Cup in 2019. Greg Popovich is coming in now. For the guys who have been on the national team, that's 2 coaching changes since the last Olympics. That's a little bit of a transition.
Sure.
So I'm not pushing the panic button. I think the gap has narrowed a little bit, but like you said, I think it's a gold medal coming back stateside.
Agreed.
Let's look at soccer. The men's team misses the Olympics.
Not great.
After missing the World Cup a few years ago, somehow we'll manage to make it interesting trying to go for a World Cup spot in 2022. But then the women's team gets annihilated in its Olympic opener. Is the U.S. soccer presence at the Olympics in trouble?
I'm a little more nervous for them. This is the first time that we've seen the women struggle so quickly off the top. I think they lost 3-0 in that opening game. And I mean, it was more surprising for me because this is a team that's dominated. And again, a lot of new, unfamiliar faces to this women's national team coming in. But again, they have such great leadership. Megan Rapinoe is kind of the star of that team, and I think she's going to get everybody in check.
I agree with you on that. 3-0's a lot.
It is.
And it's to the same team that knocked you out in the quarterfinals down in Rio. Yeah, you played remarkably well in 2019 in that World Cup in France, which was, and this is true, after the last Olympic Games. But that's a really shocking result in your group opener. I understand that Olympic finish from Rio probably had something to do with them getting into the group of death in this particular tournament.
Right.
I'm worried. I think we could be looking at a second straight Olympics without a medal in soccer because the women's game has been catching up. You look at nations like Australia, you look at countries like Sweden, Brazil, all these countries that have been on the cusp of competing with the United States at the Women's World Cup, at the Olympics, and at all these major tournaments, they're closing that gap. They're pouring more and more money into the women's program for these types of results. I think we're at risk of, I don't think we bring a gold back stateside in women's soccer.
Bold prediction.
It's a bold prediction. I think at best we're looking at bronze because this result matters. This result will hurt when it comes to putting that bracket together because I think Sweden proved in that match that Sweden's winning the group. And so that puts them in a much more favorable bracket position. I think we're looking at bronze at best, I think we're looking at a realistic shot of not bringing in a medal back stateside.
I will say this, I did like the dedication of the women's team. They did not go to the opening ceremony. They were practicing. They did their own private opening ceremony because they wanted to get laser focused for this match on Saturday. And I was like, all right, I'll give them the determination, the dedication to missing what is probably one of the most unique and rewarding parts of the Olympics.
It really is. And to explain, and you mentioned it, they missed the opening ceremonies. You want to know why? They play at 6 a.m. Central Time in the second match of the Olympics. Yeah, they need to be focused.
Yeah, they do.
I do like the dedication as well. Okay, this one, we're not talking about why she's missing there. It's Sha'Carri Richardson, the Dallas area track and field star, who is not on the Olympic team for reasons we have covered here on 6 News. What we want to focus on, does the loss of Richardson hurt the women's track team in Tokyo?
Oh, absolutely. She is one of the fastest women on the planet. She was the favorite to win the 100. I mean, it's huge that she's going to be missing for Team USA. They were trying to get their first gold medal in that since the 90s. It's a big miss that she won't be there.
It is. You mentioned one of the fastest women in the world, won the Olympic trials in the 100 by a wide margin, as you can see it on your screens right now. Look, it's been a long time since the United States has won gold in the women's 100 meter at the Olympics. She was our best shot, and I don't think that that's a stretch in saying that. Sha'Carri Richardson was the United States' best shot at gold in the women's 100 meter. Her not being there puts that in jeopardy. What was it? You looked up the stat
98.
earlier.
98 is the last time that the women won in the 100.
So Atlanta, Paris, if Sha'Carri Richardson or someone to her caliber is not able to go to Paris, we're looking at a realistic shot where it's the 2 United States-bound Olympic Games that we win gold in the women's 100. You really have to think Richardson's at the prime of her career. She should be in Paris, barring injury. But, you know, this is a big shift for U.S. track and field.
It's a huge blow. And I mean, it is almost like going, if you're Team USA in basketball, it's almost like going to the Olympics without LeBron or without Kevin Durant or without Bradley Beal, who's not coming. So you've got Durant, but you planned on having all 3 of them. You planned on having Sha'Carri Richardson. And now that she's not a part of that equation, it's a huge just missing piece of their squad.
One that's not on here, how big is it for Baylor, real quick, that Casey Lightfoot is so highly regarded going into the men's pole vault competition?
Yeah, absolutely. He's considered the 3rd favorite right now, and he's going up against a really good pole vaulter from Sweden who just broke a world record. But for Casey Lightfoot and Baylor, the brand of Baylor, to be able to recruit and go, hey, look at this guy that we put in the Olympics. He is a favorite in this event to win, and that's huge.
Like, this is the guy who clearly, if you go back and watch the Olympic trial finals in pole vault, he was just happy he made the dang team when he was in the final 3. He's like, screw it, I'm going to Tokyo. We're cool with this. He finished 3rd at the trials. Man won the indoor national title, was a favorite to win the outdoor national title in pole vault. Had he competed and finished the outdoor season, I like his chances to get on the podium. But like you said, when you are going up against the guy, things get a little more difficult. There is one other track star from the Metroplex, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, heading to Tokyo.
And it's triple jumper Jasmine Moore. She got quite the send-off from her community in Mansfield. Triple jumps get started.
The excitement was hard to contain. Emotions difficult for Jasmine Moore to hold back.
To see my friends from elementary school still here and they still come to all my meets, it means the world.
She's headed to Tokyo on the USA track and field team to compete in the triple jump, an accomplishment that's been a long time coming.
And I've just wanted this for such a long time, so to finally be able to compete and represent Team USA in Tokyo, I'm just so grateful. And
as Moore heads off to the biggest competition of her life in front of the entire world, hey, go Jasmine! There was no way her hometown of Mansfield was going to let her go without a proper send-off. Go Jasmine! Childhood friends, teachers, the mayor, and coaches caravan to Danny Jones Elementary School. Some say they always knew this day would come.
And she's not just talk the talk, but she's a walk the walk.
The accomplishment is bittersweet. Due to COVID restrictions, her parents, who hardly ever miss a meet, won't be there in person. They've seen the hard work behind the glory.
She's sacrificed. She committed to her sport, and that, I mean, this moment right here, it was worth every bit of it. So we're very proud of her.
Moore says if she could tell her younger self anything about this journey, it would be this.
all the hard times and the tears and the pain, it was all worth it to make the Olympic team.
How can you not root for her after that? Triple jump gets started next Friday morning with qualifying rounds.
You got to root for the Texans.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
Well, that's just Texas in general. You root for your own.
And it's awesome to see such a strong track presence, and that's an incredibly difficult event to qualify for. We certainly wish her the best.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we talked excitement surrounding these games earlier with Chris Radcliffe, but there may be someone who sits next to him that is more excited about it.
She sits alongside us every night. Let's bring in evening anchor extraordinaire LESLIEDRAFFIN from the newsroom. Leslie, the Olympics are finally here.
I know. I put on multiple Olympic pins just to celebrate. I tried to find everybody's at their desk, so sorry if I grabbed one of yours. Yeah, I'm excited for the Olympics. You know, it sucks that we've had to wait a whole year for this. But I'm really pretty just shocked that it's happening. I'm glad that it's happening, but all these athletes who have waited an additional, year, 12 months, more training, more sacrificing for these sports, I'm glad they're getting to participate, even though, these games are so different than any of the games we've ever seen before. Watching the opening ceremonies right now, it's completely dead in there, right? There's nobody in there watching, 950 people or so in this massive, massive stadium where you're used to seeing, thousands and thousands of people. So I'm really interested in seeing how some of the sports that are big fan sports play out when there aren't any fans to cheer them on.
That's a really good point. I do want to ask, you saw a lot of the same stuff coming across the wires and coming into our newsroom this week that I did. Were you getting worried at some point?
Yeah, yesterday. I mean, when you have the CEO talking about the fact that, if infection rates do increase, we will call it. I think now we're kind of safe because they're already in it, and at this point, are you going to stop the games in the middle of it? I don't know. I think, I feel for the people who are in Japan who are maybe going to be negatively affected by this, but then again, you have to think of the Japanese economy and how negatively affected it would be if this games never happened.
All right, Leslie, we talk about the Olympics in our newsroom nonstop, and one name just keeps coming up in one sport in particular. What is it? Just tell everybody.
Of course we know. It's Simone Biles. Yeah. She's the GOAT. Yeah, I have, a couple of athletes that I'm watching, and my all-time favorite sport is gymnastics. So Simone Biles, definitely my top one to watch. She's the GOAT. She really is neat. You don't need to even say anything more. She is going to kill it. I really, really hope she does extremely well. The next athlete that I'm watching, though, is another gymnast, Sunisa Lee. So if Simone Biles has a weak spot anywhere, it would be uneven bars. She had that big flop at the U.S. Olympic trials. So Lee is super, super strong in this event. Pretty excited to watch her there. Now, my other athletes to watch, Sydney McLaughlin. She is track and field, 400-meter hurdles, which I ran in high school, by the way, just way slower than McLaughlin's new world record. She ran it at the trials in 52 seconds. I really like watching track and field. It's one of my favorite sports to watch. Yeah, I also love watching swimming. So Caleb Dressel, looking forward to watching him. He's going to be filling Michael Phelps' shoes since it's the first time in 20 years USA Swim has not had that legend in the lanes. And the other person I'm watching is Naomi Osaka. Now, I know she's not technically representing the U.S. She is representing Japan. But I just love her. I love the way she really openly talks about her mental health, needing to take that break with the French Open. So I think more people need to talk about that. I'll be rooting for her as well. So yeah, I think you kind of heard in there what my top sports are, but just to lay it out there, plain and simple, gymnastics, diving, swimming. I'm pretty into watching sport climbing. I've seen a lot of the YouTube videos and Instagrams and the reels of this stuff, and they're sprinting up just like vertical walls for climbing. It's brand new. I'll be watching that, and I'll also be looking at skateboarding. I like skateboarding.
Yeah. I like that, sport climbing. It's like American Ninja Warrior, but on an Olympic stage.
Is there a better name? Could we have come up with a better name for it, though? Just sport climbing. What do you do? Sport climbing.
Okay, but you're also a big Olympic purist, for lack of a better way of putting it. You don't like watching the big, the big ticket stuff that we can watch on networks like ESPN any day back here when it's not an Olympic event.
No, I think it's an unpopular opinion, but I will be the first to say it. I don't want to see baseball in the Olympics, and I don't want to see basketball at the Olympics. I'm also confused as to why we need soccer in the Olympics when we have the World Cup. I'm here to watch the sports we don't get to see, right? Like gymnastics, diving, synchronized swimming. Let me see a synchronized swimming World Cup. I'm watching it. Am I the only person watching it? Possibly. So I understand why the big sports are there, but I want to watch, you know, the young athletes. I'm always here for those golden moments, and you know, I could turn the TV on pretty much any day here in the States and see baseball or basketball, depending on what time of year it is, and you know, I don't want to watch them in the Olympics.
Put it in a letter, right into the Olympic Committee. This is what you want, this is what you don't want. Or maybe you serve on the Olympic Committee, Leslie.
I would not want that
job. There might be some spots open for election.
There really might be.
What are your favorite Olympic moments?
I love this. Okay, so like I said, I love watching the younger athletes, and the two big moments that stick out to me, obviously, 98 Olympics when Tara Lipinski was the Winter Games, when she took home the gold in women's figure skating. She was just a couple years older than I was at that point. And so watching her become, I think, the youngest gold medalist in that sport at that point was amazing. And then number one, it's the 96 Atlanta Games when Team USA Gymnastics takes home the gold, and Carrie Strug did the final vault, even though it would come out later that she didn't technically need to. You know, she lands it, hurts her ankle. Bella Caroli picks her up, takes her to the medal stand, the podium, and you know, iconic. And my 10-year-old self was like living through that. I had taken a couple of years of gymnastics, and so I was just like practicing in the backyard. I was Carrie Strug for Halloween 2 years in a row after that. Seriously.
Love it.
We need the photos of that.
I'll see if we can drag them out.
Yeah.
So with that being your favorite Olympic moment there with the gymnastics, have you been glued to the team all-around finals every Olympics since?
It's hard because they've changed the way that they do gymnastics, the way that they score it. They've got alternates now, and sometimes like not everybody competes in all the events, so it's hard to keep up. I haven't, as I've gotten older, stayed as glued to it, but I have, for the last week and a half, been just watching on repeat like the glory moments. I watched earlier today glory moments from that 96 team, which is why I knew I needed to talk about it today. But watching, you know, just the warm-ups with Simone Biles today, actually, in Tokyo, seeing how much she is just killing it. I mean, I'll always be a fan.
There it is, the gymnastics fan herself, LESLIEDRAFFIN. Appreciate your time, Leslie. Thanks for joining us on Our Team, Our Town.
Yeah, see you later.
See you later. There she goes.
Yeah, all right.
LESLIEDRAFFIN. Now it's the moment that we've been dreading.
Yeah, I've just been like really pumped for this part.
Because we had the courage to put our top 5 Summer Olympic events on paper. And by paper, I mean on
People are going to be critical. People are going to be critical of this. We're going to get phone calls.
We had some amazing Olympic events that were just edged out. So here we go. We're both going to share our top 5 Summer Olympic events, ones we cannot wait to watch. They can be classic games. They can be new events. Let's start with mine. Number 1 is swimming. I was a child. My first Olympic Games as an adult was the Rio Games, and watching Michael Phelps dominate my entire childhood got me hooked on Olympic swimming. Track and field, I was a child of the Usain Bolt era. I love Olympic track and field, and like I said earlier, that Jeremy Warner race in Athens is the one that got me hooked on it. Gymnastics. The women's all-around team final is one of the best television events every 4 years, and I will die on that hill. Surfing, a brand new Olympic event. I could not be more excited about seeing something like this. I am intrigued by what the wave problem is going to be there in Tokyo. And finally, I'm a basketball guy. I played basketball year-round as a kid. Covering the NCAA tournament was a bucket list item for me. I have to have the basketball gold medal game on my list.
Yeah, I'm excited for the basketball gold medal. My top 5, we actually have some similarities because you said you're a child of swimming, you're a child of Michael Phelps. Same here. I got to watch this guy growing up dominate, and I just kind of thought that was the norm.
Right.
It's not. And then, hey, go Devils, Arizona State. Michael Phelps, when I was in college, ended up coming there as an advisor to Bob Bowden, who is Team USA's coach and also the head coach at Arizona State. So I am a huge Team USA swimming stan, number 1. 2, gymnastics for all the reason you had. I mean, is there anything like that you watch and you go, my body can't do that?
Right.
I physically cannot move in that way.
I get intimidated watching the Iron Cross on the rings with the men's gymnastics stuff. Like, I don't want to make those guys mad.
Yeah, exactly. So I am fascinated by that. Then we have a new one. Skateboarding is coming in. And if there was anything that I learned from playing Nintendo 64 and Tony Hawk games, is that I like watching people skate. I don't like to skate myself because it terrifies me, but I'm all for the new competition in skateboarding. Golf makes its return to the Olympics. If you follow me on Twitter, you know how much I like golf, and I play every single week, so I can't wait to see the best in the world. And then finally, water polo.
That was the one that caught me off guard.
Water polo is just, man, it mesmerizes me, and it's so different. It's only really in one region of the United States, which is the West Coast. And we, with Stanford and USC and all those Pac-12 schools, such good water polo talent, and I am really excited to see athletes from all over the world compete in that sport.
Okay, so now we go to Nikki Lattarulo's list. She is on vacation right now with her family up in the New Jersey area, but her list could not be more on brand if she had tried. Number one, gymnastics. I don't know if you guys know this. Nikki was a cheerleader. She loves gymnastics. This girl knows the Big 12 because of its cheerleading coming from New Jersey, and it's honestly kind of impressive.
I would call Nikki the Big 12 gymnastics expert / insider out of anybody in the country.
Oh yeah, nobody was more excited about Baylor, getting to cover Baylor win an acrobatics and tumbling national championship than our own Nikki Lattarulo. Number two, swimming. Number three, diving. That's an interesting one.
It is. I mean, the synchronized diving, how high up they are, how they land, I would be in pain for days. I can only do a belly flop or a cannonball. So to see these men and women flip like they can, I love it.
I'm all in on it. Beach volleyball is one that you and I talked about earlier today. That just missed the cut for our top 5.
So intense.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Then track and field for obvious reasons. Okay, your favorite event in track?
I like the hurdles. And it's really just because I like watching the hurdle fails, which is mean of me, but if somebody eats it going up and over that bar, it's hilarious.
It's very funny, and one of the most iconic moments is, like you said, a hurdle fail. It cost the U.S. a medal, but it's one of the most iconic Olympic moments that I can remember, and it was Lolo Jones struggling on the first hurdle.
Yeah, it's funny.
In the Olympics. Okay, another Olympic host announced earlier this week. Brisbane, Australia will host the 2032 Summer Games. Brisbane will become the 3rd city to host the Summer Olympics in the land down under, behind Melbourne in 1956, which has a fun caveat we'll get to if we have time, and Sydney, which hosted the extremely popular 2000 Games. It became the IOC's frontrunner back in February. It follows Paris in 2024 and Los Angeles in 2028. Matt, my friend, we talked about this in the newsroom just a few minutes ago. The 1956 Olympics, because they were in Australia, late November to early December. The equestrian events were held in Sweden in June, because that makes sense.
It makes no sense, but it is what it is.
How excited are you to finally be at the opening ceremonies?
Oh, amped. And in LA, maybe we will actually in person be at the opening ceremonies.
Jim, I know you're watching. That's our bid. That's our proposal. We want to be in LA in 2028. Thank you guys so much for spending part of your night with us. This was Our Team, Our Town. Let's see if we can pull up a live look of Tokyo as we say farewell from this opening ceremony special. Enjoy the games for all of us working the late shift here at 6 News. We appreciate you spending part of your night with us. Good night and enjoy the Tokyo Olympics.